Shalom, friends. This is Michael coming back with my discussion on the Hebrew kingdom. And today we are going to talk about the letter Vav in the alphabet. I really want introduction music, but I hope y'all are okay with my sound effects. Okay. So today we are on the letter Vav, which you see right here. This is the script. This is what the cursive looks like in Hebrew, and this is what the Vav would look like when you read it in Torah or any other book that has Hebrew language in it. Now, there are a lot of puzzle pieces regarding this, and I want to kind of show you the puzzle pieces that we have before we put them together and make the lovely image and pictures that we can. The revelation that I got from all this is pretty amazing. Okay, first off, we have the gematria of 6. Vav is the 6th letter of the alphabet, so it represents the number 6. Now, the image of the Vav, it looks like a nail on its own. Right now, it just looks like the nail, a tent peg, or maybe even the end of a hook. The symbolism behind it, though, is like a joining of together, making secure, becoming bound, or nailed to. But the two most important representations that the letter Vav has are the conjunction, I recall it should be the word conjunction, and it's also the symbol of man, which is really important. Okay, so the really important thing to kind of notice with this is kind of like just going a further step into making a bit bigger of a picture here. So the Vav is used between heaven and earth and kind of joins them together in a joint covenant. So it's seen in the book of Genesis, chapter 1, when God created the heavens and the earth. He, in a sense, put his signature on the creation. Before man was ever created, he put his signature on creation. And I believe I may have talked about this briefly in another video. I really can't remember, but it's the Et. So let me just kind of give you an image of what that looks like. So, Et Shemaim Ve Et. Alright, that's it. Et. Now, mind you, I can't remember the word for earth, but I'm going with the word adum because it has a double significance in what I want to express. So it's going to be adum. I don't know if I'm exactly right, but I want to use adum specifically. Okay, so when God created the heavens and the earth, he put his signature on it. So it's Et Shemaim Ve'et Adum. Now again, paraphrasing with the Adum. Shemaim is heavens. Adum is earth. But it's not just earth. It's also dirt from which man was created. Now, like I said, the number the letter Vav, which represents the number 6, both of these symbolize man. Really important. Okay, so the first thing to actually recognize is that God covenanted himself with creation of the heavens and the earth before he ever covenanted himself with us. He covenanted himself with earth before he ever covenanted himself with man. And that's shown in his signature, which is the Aleph Tav, which makes the Et. Aleph being him as the God of all gods, El, Elohim, Elyon. And Elyon really does mean creator, the creative side of him. But the Tav is the covenanted part with him. And that really is just his little thumbprint, his signature, just going, that's fine. So he covenanted himself to the heavens and earth. But also more importantly, and this I'm going to talk about a little later, is that there were generations of the heavens and the earth before there were generations of man. Vav just happens to be one of the letters that's used in congruence with this because it joins the heavens to the earth. Now, one really important thing I want to say is that it is man's job to bring heaven to earth, the spiritual to the physical. I love the reality of duality because that's literally the image of what you get to see here. And I know I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself with some of the things that I'm saying, but it's just really fascinating because that was why God put us here on this earth. We are Vavs who are covenanted to him, just like this, covenanted to him. And our purpose is to bring heaven to earth. And one of the ways that actually happened before Yeshua came, before a lot of biblical history happened, Moses came along. He's a really important person to talk about here because Moses wrote the first 5 books of Torah. And Moses was one of the first examples of, how do I want to say this? Not first example. Sorry. He was the person that God used to not only be a prophet, not only to be a type of Messiah, but he also showed him things in the spirit that he said, that God said to Moses, I want you to bring it to earth now. Before I actually get into that, I kind of want to go back to the generations thing, the generations of the heavens and the earth, because this is actually really important to know before I say what I want to say. So, the thing is, we are part of this. The heavens represents the spiritual, like I said, and the earth, the physical, is represented by the Adum here. This is kind of the image I want to give you. I want you to say. We, in the process of the fall of man, with Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, separated ourselves from the spiritual with the fall of man when we succumb to sin and all the consequences that we put ourselves in with that. So we separated ourselves in that. But the thing is, Yeshua joined us back together with him, brought the spiritual back into physical. So this is just a really important aspect to see because I know I'm going to talk about that one part a little later. And I'm kind of giving away part of what I wanted to say, but it's okay. But the thing is, in the history of the generations of heaven and earth, The spiritual and the physical were supposed to be always connected, but because of the fall of man, we disconnected ourselves. And in that disconnecting of ourselves, the generations, which is actually the word toldot in Hebrew, toldot, yeah, that's legible. Toldot was used in I think it's Genesis chapter 2, verse 14. That was the one time that this writing of Toldot was put into play in the Bible, and it was referring to the generations of the heavens and the earth. Now, the thing is, after the fall of man, one of these goes missing. I can't remember which one it is, but I'm pretty confident it's this one. Because the thing is, Adam represents the first man, the first Adam. And he played his role, in a sense, on his own, which is why it's on its own. So the word toldot from Genesis chapter 2, verse 14, all the way until the book of Ruth, chapter 4, verses 18. The one Vav goes missing, but it's brought back into place in Ruth 4:18. And that is in reference to the reestablishing of the genealogies that had gone from Abraham, Adam to Noah to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, all the way to Peretz, all the way to Ruth and Boaz. And the reason why it went to Ruth and Boaz is because Boaz, who is an Israeli, married a Gentile named Ruth. And in the process of that marriage, in the process of that consummation of the marriage and the genealogy that continued, God put himself, his son, back into the picture because it was his covenant in action. Because he was not going to save the Jews alone. He also wanted to save the Gentiles as well. So Ruth had to play a part in that. And that's why Toldot is reestablished in Ruth chapter 4, verse 18. So that all the Jewish and the Gentile generations could be saved by Yeshua. And now I'm going to go back to Moses, because I know I jumped ahead to Ruth, but I'm going to go back to Moses, because Moses did something very, very, very impactful. So then I'm going to take this. Because that's an annoying number. Okay, so Moses is on Mount Sinai. He's talking to God, and God is giving him an image of what the tabernacle, which is the Mishkan in Hebrew, looks like in heaven. And this is really important for so many different reasons. But Moses saw the spiritual image, the heavenly image of the Mishkan, the tabernacle. And God told him, gave him all the directions of how to establish it on the earth. And the thing is, God gave this revelation to a man who represents the Vav. And Moses gave that image to Aholiab and Bezalel and so many other people who created this tabernacle, bringing that spiritual image down onto earth. And in the process of creating all those fabrics, all those curtains, all those posts, all those poles, all those furnishings, the pots, the pans, the silver, the gold, and all of that, these people who represent Vavs had to create tent pegs, which are a representation of the Vav, and attach that tabernacle to the earth thus establishing the spiritual realm into the physical realm. If this isn't an image of what we are supposed to do on this earth, I don't know what is. And the most important thing is that this was the temple. Granted, it was the transportable one, the mobile one, but it was the temple. This is before anybody got the revelation that our body is the temple. And this is even more interesting because one wouldn't think that this actually works hand in hand together, but it does. So the all the posts, all the furnishings, all the vavs, all the tent pegs, all the hooks that were used to create the tabernacle, the scribes who write the Torah, and so that everybody can read it, the scribes who rewrite the Torah over and over and over for yeshivas in Israel, they call the pages, that they are writing on Yeliyah, Yeliot, which is a word that they used for the curtains in the tabernacle that separated the holy holies from the rest of the tabernacle. And then they also called the posts for the tabernacle. They called the columns of writing like this. This is a column of writing here. They called the column of writing like the posts and the connectors of the tabernacle for it to be all one functional building. They called that amudim. They called this amudim. They called the posts of the tabernacle amudim, and this is a column, which they called amudim. But the thing is, every time they would start another page in the Torah, they would start it with a vav. Why? Because the vav here would hook itself, nail itself nail its column that it's attached to that page, to that curtain, thus establishing, in a sense, that the tabernacle is Torah. All its operants, all its furnishings, all its beauty, all its splendor and glory. In a sense, all of that represents Torah, what it's supposed to look like. They do that with Torah, tabernacle, I was trying to say earlier, Torah, book. So these go hand in hand. They use that to their advantage. I don't know if I explained that very well, but I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to trust that you understood what I was saying. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. Now, the thing is, oh my gosh, the thing is that the Mishkan, the tabernacle, this is not just a representation of Torah, and yes, the scribes, I was about to say priests and kohanim, the scribes used Torah as an example for that. But the thing is, we are the temple. We are the temple. Our bodies, this physical body of mine, which is in the shape of a vav, is the temple. And I can't help but just go on to my next point because it just makes me excited. Okay, so the center of all of Torah, is in Leviticus 11:42. Leviticus chapter 11, verse 42. Sorry, I almost said 22. The center of it. And this chapter of the Bible, of Torah, speaks of kashrut, their just their way of lifestyle of eating was kashrut. In the book where it talks about what animals to eat and what animals not to eat, what creatures to eat and what not to eat. And the most important thing is that the vav that marks the vav marks this center of the Torah, and it rests in the word gachon, which I will write for you. Gachon. Oh, wow, that's a really long name. At least you know it's a name. So it's in the word gachon. And gachon means belly. Ironically, it's not talking about the belly of a man. I'm just going to leave it there. But the important thing is that if this, because here's the Vav, is the absolute center of all of Torah, which it is, this just goes to show how important it is to have the right eating habits. And I'm not just talking about food, okay? Because yes, it shows like you are what you eat. There's that phrase. But like this chapter talks about distinctions between clean and unclean. And a lot of how we talk nowadays is like food and healthy and unhealthy foods. And we have our own distinctions just like the Bible has its own distinctions for this thing, for this topic. But the thing is, it's not just important to know what's going into the belly of our physical bodies, it's important to know what's going into the belly of our spiritual bodies. And this is so important because in Luke chapter 6, verse 45, Jesus talks about how out of the heart the mouth speaks, out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. And when we do that, when we speak from our heart, we're literally showing the fruit of our heart, because our heart is our root system. Our brain, our thoughts are the branches, and what comes out of our mouth and what comes from our actions, that's the fruit. So it's really funny, and actually actions speak louder than words, because people can still say one thing and do another. But when you are acting, when you are doing something, when you are being and doing instead of just talking and saying, that shows how much more fruit is in you. So it's really important that we watch for what we're consuming in our ear and our eye gates, because those eat too. It's not just your mouth that eats, not just your nose that smells the food that you're eating. It's your eyes that eat too, and your ears that eat too. There's a reason that it's all around near the face as well. Not going to get into that because I didn't study it. I just find that really interesting. And also, the most important thing is that this shows how important it is to fill your belly, physical and spiritual, with good things. Oh, taste and see that the Lord is good. I love that verse. And the most important thing is that there's one person in the Bible who exemplified all of this perfectly. And of course, we all know that this is Yeshua. He is the Word. He's the living Word. He is where we get our life from. So how much more we should read the Bible, because it is Him. When we read the Bible, we are eating from Him. And the most important thing to recognize is that when you eat enough of the Word, you can fight back the devil and his minions with that Word. And Jesus exemplifies that in Matthew chapter 4. And that's just absolutely beautiful. Okay, so the next part that I want to jump to is okay. So, giving you one more image before I finally give you a whole summary of everything here. going back into Torah, going back to actually a Torah portion that we were reading, I think, if not last week, it was 2 weeks ago. So it was either this past week or the week before. The Torah portion included Numbers chapter 25, verse 12. And in that chapter is being discussed what happens with Pinchas, also known as Phineas in English. And Phineas, they're in the Israel, just to give you an image of what this looks like right now. Balaam and Balak tried to curse Israel, but nothing could come out but blessing. So they turned around and switched the game. So they're just like, fine, we're going to seduce the men of Israel with the women of Midian and Moab. They send out the women to do so. And in the process of that, God starts a plague. And in that plague, Pinchas, who is interceding on their behalf with his fathers, with Moses, with the rest of the Levites, he turns and he sees an Israeli man, Israeli prince, mind you, leading a Moabite princess named Cosby to his tents, and in his zeal, he spears them straight through and stops the plague entirely. So in other words, Pinchas' zeal was to prevent sin from persisting and prevent the plague from continuing on. And this models a type of Yeshua. And the second that was done, God said to Moses, I have made a covenant of peace with Pinchas. And when God says covenant of peace, he says covenants of shalom. However, when the word shalom is written in the Torah, now mind you, Jews do not do this. Prefacing this really quick with a comment here. I shouldn't say Jews, sorry. When the rabbinical scribes are writing out Torah, they do not want the letters any way, shape, defiled in any or too close to other letters. If it's too close to another letter, or if the letter doesn't look like the letter that it's supposed to be, they literally burn that whole piece of paper that they were working on. That important. My gosh, if Christians could do that nowadays too, that would be great. But I'm not going to get into that diatribe. So what I'm showing is just the importance of how much they were not going to distort any letters in the Torah. However, this is one of their exceptions. When the word shalom is written, clearly I would not be a scribe. It's written with a broken Vav. Specifically a broken Vav when God says, I am giving him my covenants of peace. And the reason why is because not only was man broken by the fall of man, but God knew it was going to take his son to be broken for us to reestablish that shalom. And I'm saying all this to bring this into one full conclusion. Wrong side of the page. Oh my goodness. Sorry. Okay. Now we're going to focus on Yeshua. Yeshua, who is the living word, also the Son of Man. Son of Man. And he's also the first and only perfect example of what a human temple should behave like on this earth. He was staked by nails, which represent Vavs, to the cross. And his spirit entered the heavenly temple on our behalf. And his whole life before on the earth is an example of how we should be as temples of the Most High God. For he knew how important it was to consume the living word, that he is the word. He knew how important it would be to join himself to us so that we could live out heaven on earth, because we needed a perfect example of that. He knew we needed that. But he also knew that he, as a Vav, needed to redeem all the other little Vavs on this earth, because we are little. And he was also the second Adam to come in that Toldot. I'm literally getting a bit overheated about this. So he is Torah. That's just Holy Spirit. So he is Torah. He had the diet that we're supposed to have. He knew who he was supposed to eat from physically and spiritually. And he knew also that he came to seek and save that which was lost. He had to redeem us. And he came as the Messiah. And the most important and the most fascinating thing to me is the fact that Yeshua, my handwriting right now. I'm just so excited. Yeshua has a Vav in it. Yesh is a word. It means have. So he has man inside him, and his eyes are on him, because this is Ayin, this is his eyes. Not only that, Yehovah. In the midst of grace and God's work, we are there in him. Him and us and him. And on top of that, Lach Ha Kodesh. This is the Holy Spirit. Mind you, there are Vavs in both words. So the head of the Spirit protects the man. And in the midst of holiness, we are to be holy. I don't know what else to say, but this is just a beautiful picture of how he wants us to abide in him, because we are already in him, but he wants to be in us. This is why we're a temple for him. The Holy Spirit is to live in us, especially since there are two of them. That's just my thinking. How much more we should just abide in his manifest presence, because when we know God, we can make him known to others. When we love God, we can love others. And that's the epitome, the whole point of Torah. The Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuto, Leolam Vayed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך. And then there's לאלוהיך ואהבת לאלוהיך כמוך. I think I pronounced that one a little wrong. But the point is that when we love him, we can live out his love. When we love his word, we will feed that word to others. And the last thing I want to show before I sign off is the word Torah. Why am I making things too long? Torah. Again, there's a Vav here. covenant. This is the Tav, covenant. Covenant to man by God who is the head is revealed. With that, I want that just to resonate with you guys. I just want you guys to think about that. On that note, shalom. Have a good evening.